Man, I am doing my best, guys. Welcome to No Man's Land. It is the 12th. We've got so many things to cover, and I'm getting these errors that are popping up in StreamYard that I have never experienced before. So it's kind of new to me. And it's just saying error. It's kind of just telling me that Facebook is unable to let me go live, which is really sad because I have a lot of really great people who join me from Facebook. So I'm wondering if you're joining me from Facebook and maybe that's just an error. Let me know where you are joining from. Let me know in the comments below where you are at. Welcome, Mary. Welcome, Matt. Welcome, all of you guys joining me. I, of course, am Sarah Soderlund, your host today, every day, Monday through Thursday at noon Central Standard Time. And I'm in northern Minnesota. You guys, we have so many interesting headlines and things to cover. You know, I did my morning meditation. That's kind of a big thing I'm trying to do when I get my kids off to the bus, to trying to keep that consistent going into the summer when school closes down, to still keep that routine, because in these spaces, whether it's the pandemic that's really shifting for you, or the unemployment, or just lifestyle of what it's like these days, wherever you are in the world, keeping a good system of routine is so important. Janie, I hope I'm saying that right. Greetings from Finland. Welcome. Oh, that's awesome. I would love to visit Finland someday. You know, I've my number of how many countries, like I would love to be a part of the 100 club, where that would just be so neat. But I'm only at 12. Wah, wah, wah. So, and Finland is not on my list. I want to go. I need to get there. So very, very, very cool. When I think of all the beautiful places that it's like Ireland, I've yet to see, Finland, Norway, these places, and like Scandinavia, I would love to visit. For me, it was more England, France, Germany, Liechtenstein, Austria, Mexico, Canada, these kinds of spaces. So, but man, that's so cool. So wonderful. Welcome. We are here in the wonderful United States of America, while it still is. And let's just go through the headlines together, guys. The point here at No Man's Land, and the reason I chose that title, as I was sharing with some people in meditation today, was that, so often the kind of average white male, which of course I have no idea what that perspective is like, but I am married to one, raised by one, and I'm a mother to two boys. And often I am speaking for the vulnerable in a mental health situation, or I'm speaking on behalf of my children, or being married and having an intimate relationship with someone, being able to empathize and then therefore see commercials differently, see or hear radio ads differently, and be like, wow, it's kind of really degrading to men. That's not okay. Seeing the double standards and language, for me, my formal education in forensic psychology, no one ever really cared much about that. Discussing standard operating procedure. What is it about an interview versus an interrogation? What is violent language? What is verbal assault? No one really gave a hoot. And then things started to shift in and around Obama. Really, for me in a forensic psychology space, being licensed or unlicensed, supervised, unsupervised, being able to have an internship, a non-internship, these things really shifted and changed in that space. And it was for ethical reasons. Ethical things shifted. Strange. Weird little loopholes became available that changed the game as in psychology, in science, and what a peer review is. And we're going to talk a little bit how all of that is coming full circle today. And how are you guys feeling? It's hump day. It's only Wednesday, but last night was a new moon. So you may not subscribe to all that flim flam shim sham, but I do. I believe that, Carl Sagan was right. We are all absolutely connected. We are all little pieces of stardust, and astrology has helped me be able to navigate and predict some things when people wonder, like, oh my gosh, how do you, use information, or how do you understand synchronicity, or in trying to be linguistics and understand languages of math and binary and different dimensions, and how to talk with someone or build rapport with someone who has a different belief system than you. These are all navigations of the gray and no man's land. So with that, you guys, this new moon in Taurus means that we're feeling pulled. Taurus is a fixed space. We're feeling pulled. How can we even be pulled anymore or stretched or segregated anymore? How can it? Well, as headlines would read, there's wartime, guys. We are in a proxy war, if you will. Be careful what we say. A petro-military business, if you will. That's the world we live in, guys. This is Russia and China and the United States sitting at the lunch table of the elite and fighting over, what the prom theme is going to be for everybody. And as we go through the headlines, the representation or lack thereof, taxation or lack thereof, or these things, Taurus is about investment. It's about anchoring. It's an energy that's needs to be practical, but also patient. It suggests growth, but in that space, it also suggests that we're in a lot of death and grief. And I think many people I know, seeing the mental health field, that these numbers are going up. Crime is going up. One horrible statistic that I'm seeing going up and up and up and up is the age of the perpetrators of some of this more violent, heinous crime is going down. Now, Mary Bell, some of the cases of the youngest serial killers of our time, right? It's children can be quite violent. If you're a parent, they'll bop each other over the head and not give a damn. But it doesn't mean that the intention, right? And that's what matters in forensic psychology, understanding competency and intention. Well, do you think doing that is wrong? Oh, you don't. Why or why not? This is all very important with Taurus. This is a space of understanding material, physical space and what it is that you hope to gain. What? Gain? Like gain of function? Yes, we'll get to that too. But first, that new moon, you are going to be feeling it emotionally. If you haven't been feeling emotional or seeing people, break down and crying in and around you, it's not only a seasonal shift, it is an astronomical shift. And it is also a cosmological shifting space, because as I shared yesterday, and it is important, it's not just an astronomy fluff space, but if you know, NASA isn't real, hang in there with me, okay? That we are having major solar flares. So these solar flares, these will dramatically change our communication, the way that we speak. This is really going to adjust our life. I know it. Coronal mass ejections. Look it up. Don't just take my word for it. Look it up. And with that, you guys, I will go through the headlines after I hit my list. It's on my list. I want to talk about my list. These are the things I absolutely don't want to miss, because these are things that either have been affecting us and aren't in the news, which is important to mention, or it is something that someone has sent to me and said, listen, this is really important to me that we discuss. So, internet, stay with us. Signal, be strong. Let us get into this news. Well, first, I don't know if you saw it. There was a little blip there in the headlines that, again, TikTok is really frustrating major mainstream media and news and journalism because it's hard to regulate, right? Like Snapchat's a little bit more used. I think the intentions are a little different, so the demographic is different. TikTok is such just a share of information and an overwhelming, it's hard to say that the human stupidity and boredom in this time of isolation on TikTok can actually beat out the algorithm of censorship. But I dare say that if you get on TikTok, and I know it's hard to filter through, but you can actually get on some hashtags if you find them, if you check, if you read your sources, if you have groups or organizations that you're a part of. And I know maybe you don't like technology or you're of a different generation that's like, meh. But to be able to quickly and efficiently navigate the news, figure out these hashtags you're interested in, like gain of function or hashtag, 5736 or different things. TikTok is one of those, it'll be censored within 24 hours. It's getting quick, sometimes 12 hours, depending on how many people like something. So sometimes it'll even say like, please don't like this, just download it or watch it. But on the news this last night and this morning, not just because now it used to be because this is a Chinese company and we don't want to support China and Donald Trump and, maybe it was Newmark and maybe it was facial recognition and maybe it was news sharing and maybe it was we didn't have control of it yet and then it got sold out and then it's got new ownership and so now it's safe and it didn't end up getting censored and now TikTok's here and now, but wait, they're wanting to take it off because it's a national security threat. I can't say too much. I keep noticing my signal kind of fickling out when I say magic words, so I'll be careful. But that it's becoming a national concern. And that's interesting. That's interesting because really what it's about is news and the ability to edit it and share it. Because when people right now, I know they're feeling some of that pull on the end of the world as we know it, that whether you're a conspiracy theorist or not, and we will kind of dangle our toes in those waters, it goes really back to 2012, where you have Facebook and major social media back in 2012, back when the Mayans said it was going to end. You mean they thought it was 2021, and it was a mix-up of the binary, or they meant the December 21st, 2020, because that was the big shift into Aquarius. It could have been either. It really doesn't matter. What really matters is, let's just say it was 2012. Let's say they were right. Let's say the great rip and tear, not just when Higgs boson, not just when the Hadron Collider, not just when major space things, not just when all of this, not just when, but also when in 2012, HR 5736 by Smith-Mundt. This was, for me, in neurolinguistic programming, someone in parapsychology understanding binaural beats, someone working in schizophrenia and understanding tinnitus, that it might just be an additional range of hearing, hertz, understanding horror movies and interviewing people like Quentin Tarantino and infrasound being part of soundtracks and later marrying a gifted musician that understands music and the language of it. This is language, music is, and it's also very spiritual and it's patented in some ways. What? Yeah. Things were patented and amended and kind of regulated and shifted in a great many ways in 2012 under the Obama and education acts, for example, just situations with the press and with the media and with music and what visuals are being, and man, we see a big influx in technology. We see a big influx in bias, what news is able to be, and that they are actually able to be biased at this point, that we are going to amend certain things that we've always wanted to have news be bipartisan. We've always wanted it to just be refreshingly like, Sky News or something. Just tell me the facts, right? I don't care about what's between your legs. I don't care what your dog looks like. I mean, I do. I mean, post pictures later online if I follow you because I'm a fan. But while you're on the air, while you're doing your job, do your job. Do only your job. I don't care about all the other stuff. I don't care about your opinion. If you're doing the news, your job's the news. And that we would have these standards. And that I think a lot of us have been like, well, shouldn't they? What do you mean they don't have to have two sources? Haven't they always had to have two? Yes, it used to be in a time long before yesteryear that you had to have sources. That kind of changed in 2012 in this situation. So again, I'll say HR 5736 and just check it out. Just Google it, put it on a tab while you're listening to me and understand that the algorithm switch, the great switch, this is really, really important. And this is where people start getting down crazy wild wormholes of HARP and cloud seeding. And we've got people in the chat room even sharing their personal experiences and programs, things like the DIRT program, really interesting rabbit holes that really aren't conspiracy theories and that they do exist. They are real. They're what is validated, what is facts. But then if you care or are interested, these things are real. And it matters. So to not think that your news, if you're not taking extra effort, if you're not taking extra effort or feeling slightly uncomfortable when watching the news, you may not be watching news. You might be watching something else. But anyway, Back to the children. In forensic psychology, a lot of discussions and forums, hot topics are the violence, right? The violence. And for me, the addiction to violence, understanding violence, and the timing of violence, false flags, why things and the right to bear arms, why the Second Amendment, why do we keep repeating AK-47 and mass machine gun rounds? Why are we, what? It doesn't even, and anyway, it's very condescending. And if you have had to step into a position where you're fighting off an authority or you're questioning an authority and they say, because I said so, and you go, no, listen, I'm a taxpayer, I'm a voter. Because I said so is not enough. It's not okay. You need to answer my question. And if you get a little skeptical and you start receiving kind of kickback, this is kind of, again, another flag or indicator that this is a good place to be consistently questioning things that are going on. And the condescending nature in which the news kind of just assumes that people are uneducated, and then they do try and remove educational things. They try and limit people's ability to get to a conceal and carry class, or they try and demean, different organizations where they're elevating BLM, and instead they're not giving any credence to organizations going in and out of, inner cities and teaching about guns. And I just, Black Guns Matter, that organization, really, really cool things that could be in the news that aren't. And it's definitely not going in one direction, but instead the shootings, it's like one right after the other. Kansas City, friends and family working in law enforcement there, validating this. Minneapolis, having worked in that space, living in Minnesota, seeing the headlines, listening to the police scanners, seeing the numbers. And guys, I want you to take a second and remove yourself from the emotion of it. Remove yourself from the emotion of it and ask yourself like a few things. Like, for example, as the mandates lift, there will be another teeter-totter of fear. You can do this, but you can't do that. I mean, just this week, I'm arguing with people about the nomenclature and culture and etymology of gypsy and thieving and offensiveness and stereotypes. Guys, it's pretty easy to see this exchange, that if you lift a mandate, you take another, and oh wait, you do that. That just as we start having, okay, vaccinations, okay, we've got masks coming off, okay, we start having maybe some travel over here, ban Ben Shapiro from traveling over there. What? Yeah, weird things. National threat, weird things, like people that, I don't know, it's just strange. We're in a weird world. But that, oh wait, then suddenly it's okay to go out, but now our gas is going to be hijacked, or it's okay to do this, but then now we're going to have this happening and you can't go there. It's kind of a cyber fear space. It's a really interesting shift. If people aren't afraid of the terror, they're not afraid of that. They're not afraid. Oh, well, they're not afraid of COVID. Okay. But what can we be afraid of? What are people really doing right now? Man, there's a lot of screen time. There's a lot of Zoom. There's a lot of VPN protection and cyber hacking and Snowden things. You guys, I'm telling you right now, it's not just psychic stuff. It's not just Nostradamus stuff. Wait for the next Snowden person to come out of the woodwork and reveal great things. Weeks? 3 weeks? June's going to be a crazy month. June's going to be a crazy month for air, for frequency, for all sorts of weird things in that space, for internet, for phone signals, for 5G. And as Matt is sharing in our chat room, it is fact data interception, remote transmission. And it's not even so much that you have to stretch your mind anymore. We're all using it every day. And new fear, what? Like a fuel shortage? Absolutely. But we were hacked, but there was a pipestone concern. There are pipestone concerns, but it's not necessarily in hacking. Again, it makes me want to go back to the movie Hackers. Well, then just put it in manual overdrive. You can't do that anymore. What? You have never been on a boat, have you? The dock side. The hackers behind this, though their location was associated with Russia, that they might be a group of young hacka teenagers like, Harry, what was it? Harry Hardon? Happy Harry Hardon? Like they're just some remote kids, deviant punk rockers in Russia doing this thing. And that they've said, listen, we apologize. We were just holding big oil companies hostage in a small way. And we didn't turn off your oil. We never did that. Our hacking was a ransom where we said, if you don't do this, we could hack your system because we sent you the note. But we didn't actually do. It's like the Da Vinci. Well, then who turned off the oil? Why is there 45% gasoline shortage? The oil companies, the people in charge went, oh, snap. If we're vulnerable, then guess what? You see all the upset people of the hoarding that happens in mass panic. You allow the symptom to be seen, and then fear is recreated almost instantaneously. There are no coincidences. And if you are interested in online dark web things, law enforcement could really use you, and your local law enforcement community could use your time and effort. If you're out trolling the internet, why don't you do something more productive with your time and learn? Because they issued an apology, and you can follow that money trail, and it's not that hard to do. Meanwhile, in America, are we going to be changing our flag over this? Are we going to be banning the American flag and no longer doing that and just using this as an excuse to make a whole new Pledge of Allegiance and a whole new Star Spangled Banner and have like Katy Perry write it or something and have a new flag, and then it'll be like the Confederate flag, and then the old flag that everyone has and is flying is going to be a reason to ban you and enter your home and give you a forcible injection like they're doing in Canada right now? Could that happen? Why would that happen? Well, because we don't have 50 stars anymore. We have 51 now. What? Yeah. Originally, our founding fathers decided that the head of our nation, the spot where people would meet in this great pillar and symbolism and space, would be a bipartisan. It would be a neutral. It would be an honorable, sacred space for government. And the whole, does anybody remember no taxation without representation? No taxation without representation. More than 700,000 people in and around Washington, D.C. may or may not be shouting this very thing. History repeating itself. What? That's okay. Forget Puerto Rico. Forget all of those people. Make Washington, D.C. a state, the 51st, and throw out everything. Do we feel like this is a good idea? Did you guys know this was happening? How do you feel about this? Do you think this will be useful? Average person out there? How do you feel? Because it was 216 yes and 208 no. Now, anything that is that, okay, again, 216 yes, 208 no. No. In a time of great transition, don't. Should we do this? Done. Washington, D.C., now the 51st state. Next on the news, what will that do? I don't know. We'll see. We'll figure it out. Just hang on. Strap that. Oh, shit handle. Check. Okay, here we go. Next, COVID. Now, COVID, of course, news headline. And let's go back to a space where we're not necessarily fearful. And take a deep breath. Function of gain of function. Do it in and within ourselves. Oscillate, resist, do it all, stand, do all the things. COVID. COVID is a really interesting headline. It's something that requires people, and I do say this, and I say this passionately, right? If you feel strongly about it, spend the equal and opposite time getting emotional and frustrated as you do researching it or asking questions. Because I see a lot of like people screaming in other people's faces, or a lot of peer pressure, or a lot of pandering, a lot of advertisement, a lot of money, a lot of flim-flammery and a hot wind on one side, and the pressure isn't healthy. So in asking this, I just kind of want to mention a few things. I just want to, and this is one of those, if you are someone who is interested in research or you like to kind of go down those conspiracy wormholes or something, these are just things that aren't so much conspiracy, but honest to God, here in America on this podcast where I am in Minnesota, we really can't do a podcast on it. It will not air. I've done it. I've recorded it. I can send you files of some of my past podcasts that I've done. I've done podcasts for more than 13 years now. Started out on live paranormal way back in the day, back when it was another century. And this is times are different. You actually can't publish that, or they'll take it off. You'll get banned. You'll be like Trump. They'll just say, no, you're not allowed to sit at our lunch table anymore. Forget it. Now, I don't want to do that. I want to be able to walk carefully within no man's land, not offending anybody, but encouraging them, encouraging you. Do not get lost here. But if this interests you, to be able to take, so, and I know my husband, and he's somewhere here in the house, so he might laugh. Don't laugh. A lot of conspiracy, a lot, and I mean a lot. And so when I say a lot, man, working with individuals are seeing some of these waves in and around the paranormal spaces. People obviously being skeptical of the vaccine, and one should be. Look at my internet. There it goes. Administering this and how much Agenda 21 has extended in and around our borders, how that works and what that is, because that is a real thing. Event 201, a real thing. Echo 13, a real thing. If you Google 300215, that's a hashtag that is quite interesting to look into. When it comes to boundaries, protection, when it comes to different perspectives, infringement on your sacred space, going into a church, for example, or coming into your home, for example, or no-knock warrants, these things that are changing. They're changing judicially, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically. Be very aware. Like whether even if it's the curriculum in your schools or what people in and around you are able to do suddenly. Have you been standing your ground? Have you made it clear where your lines are? Because some people, recent news, I mean, I watch Canada closely, got friends and family that live there. I've often thought of moving there. I try and speak French as a second language. And so watching news out of Quebec and, have you looked at the news out of Canada? Have you watched some of their meetings? They had some press meetings talking about they will be entering churches. They will be entering homes. Demographics of people who are refusing certain medications or certain neighborhoods. Certain neighborhoods. Keep mindful of that language, guys. That is not okay. That is not okay. That is not okay. Forcible administration, force, right? If you're that's not okay. And I support police officers, right? It's very important to me that we as a public service give honor and respect to our public service workers. And if you obey, again, we are our police. So if you are obeying, your police are obeying. And out of Canada's, controversial headlines are video of police being quite aggressive with children at public parks who are out skateboarding and being forcibly pushed around on the borderline of, man, if that was happening in Minneapolis, we'd have everybody here. It wouldn't be okay. It'd be a front news headline. I'm telling you, it would. And instead, it's actually really kind of brushed under the rug. And I really encourage positive headlines of police, That's something I don't like it when people push negative baloney and don't look into it. So when I saw this, I thought, well, this better not be a perpetuating, exaggeration of this baloney narrative. And oh my gosh, unfortunately, what I saw was a misuse of power in certain spaces. And it's not police as much as look at my internet go when I say that. It's Agenda 21. So just kind of be aware of that immigration space and that power. And with that, I think it's important that we speak up and reach out to our vulnerable, meaning our elderly, our sick, our children, those people who might be struggling as mental health and certain issues go up. And children are one of those. So children, very vulnerable. They need routine. They need stability. Being able to provide that as a parent with additional support systems, whether it be church or Cub Scouts or organizations in your community that they can be a part of. The desocializing in the past year, the change in school, the removal of creative arts and just cathartic ways to deal with stress, the insertion of too much pressure, force, racism, fire, burning, pandemic, fear, and our children aren't doing well. Knowing that and knowing that the CDC and other medical organizations, because I'm not even one to consider the CDC a good source, or the WHO, but it's always been very clear as someone who works in psychology and does peer reviews and reads all the articles that don't get published. Why don't they get published? Oh, money, lobbying. You mean there's money in lobbying and pharmaceutical publishing? Oh, yeah. Have you ever had to pay money to read something that actually had information in it? Yeah, like almost every time. Yeah, funny, isn't it? Serf, peasant. Anyway, when you take part in peer review editing, Gypsy here, it gives you an opportunity to have access, usually otherwise could pay to read. And I like to read these, and neurologically speaking, and also being a knowing it's my responsibility to search. And when I start seeing, can you treat my child that suddenly after this or that or the others has and major central nervous system damage? And do you know a specialist? And grow skeptical of certain medicines. A medicine shouldn't kill you. Though, I mean, even holistic medicine, essential oils, they can do harm. The poison is in the dose, right? The medicine is in the dose. To know about it, and that's why to say that I'm skeptic of vaccines does not mean I'm an anti-vaxxer. No. But it also means that our language here, when I'm talking to my parents or you're talking to a certain generation, they might actually think you're talking about an immunization. That's different than a vaccination. It's also different if it's a synthetic vaccination. Oh, these things matter. And looking at and just some of it gets into, it's like, oh, well, I didn't know that. Well, yeah, of course you didn't, because it's not ever talked about, because you have to pay money to read that stuff, because on purpose, they keep it out of mainstream. And if you don't, find yourself late at night drinking your fifth pot of coffee, doing peer reviews for extra credit so that you make sure that you get your money for your scholarship or something, because you don't have as much privilege as people think you have, then you don't maybe read that in the small fine print. And the guilt that one has when they read it and think, holy cow, I need to pay better attention to this. This really is a real thing. Noticing that a recent headline said that we are going to be allowing the administration, even though it's still emergency authorization, no liability, to children that are between the ages of 12 and 15. Okay, now guys, it has always been consistent when you go to your doctor, which should be someone you know and trust. It should be someone you can talk to and be skeptical about. You should know, like a darn NASCAR driver, who's paying their bills, that you have a general idea of what kind of a person they are and their level of integrity. It's good to pick out a good doctor. And that you also understand science is different than big pharma. When someone goes, trust the science, sweetheart, I want to punch them in the face because that's condescending and rude. And science liberates people. Telling me to trust something and do the exact opposite of what the entire scientific method asks you to do to learn is both ironic and hypocritical and disgusting, and shame on you. So it's really interesting. And it's never been okay to receive a vaccination if your blood-brain barrier is not closed, if you have not grown all of your teeth in your mouth, if you have any kind of compromised immune system at all, and we're in a pandemic, it could be compromised. If you are stressed, if your body is in a high adrenal, highest in the blood, if you are in a panic or stress space, if you are unhealthy, pig when it's in making sure an animal's calm, there's something to this. It is never okay to administer a medication or a vaccine under those circumstances. And the CDC has always recommended that people be in otherwise good health. And if you have any underlying conditions, concerns with your immune system, or in a developmental stage, which puberty would be, that you not F with your body. It wouldn't be recommended. Why did this suddenly change? Why did this change? Why did this suddenly change? Why did this suddenly change? It's really interesting. If you were interested in Dogecoin, or you were interested in nanotechnology, if you were interested in quantum mechanics and the badass protein, you would understand exactly why this age range is up next. As a mandated reporter, I feel obligated to say that that is unethical and abusive, and it's not okay. And if you or someone you know thinks that it is okay, you should really do some more research. You possibly do long-term damage to yourself or someone that you love, especially if you're responsible for other people. It's just important. Understand the dosage. If you and someone you love, if you and your 12-year-old go through a drive-through vaccination center and are getting the same dose, I want you to ask yourself if you have ever looked at the back of a Tylenol bottle and wondered if you're giving your small child more than they should receive. Where is your line? Is it intravenous or sublingual? I don't understand. I really don't. And I'm only laughing because it makes me want to cry. My job stability, guys, working in forensic psychology, you know how many people want me to come work with their developmentally disabled children? And we go right back to the same space when they receive their 56 vaccinations by the time you're 15. Oh, well, it just used to be polio and the chickenpox when we were kids. They used to send us to parties if you didn't get it. Yeah, no, now it's Gardasil, even if you don't have a cervix, even if you're a little boy. You guys, no, one size fits all is not okay. And no, if they're not asking you for your name and your blood type, and if you have recently run a temperature, and if you have a possible heart condition and they don't know you, don't let them put something in your body. What are you doing? That seems silly to me. I don't understand. I would suggest, let's just go here. The UN guide, the UN, well, that's another country. I don't care about that. Okay, well, my in-laws and I have friends and family who live in the UN. And so I like to pay attention. And also, I've got all of my little manuals over here. A lot of you in America will be familiar with the DSM. But, guys, there's other books from other countries from, the EU, where if you take your DSM overseas, they're going to laugh at you. That's not the book. That's not the standard. Oh, you mean that they diagnose autism differently? They diagnose schizophrenia differently? Yeah. They do. They have a whole new big book that you have to buy. And that's what? Sometimes that is liberating to people, that you can't study at Edinburgh. You can't go and Edinburgh. It's Edinburgh. Well, I'm from America, so we say Edinburgh and Versailles. No, it's Versailles. You can't go to these locations and study overseas. You can't do that and then bring your credit back to America. They'll say that it's fluff. They'll say that it's no. They'll say that it's not you didn't get that from our lunch table, so we don't recognize that. Sorry. No. And that is, to me, strange. So I'm always trying to just read other articles in other countries. And the UN has a guide to COVID-19 communication. Now, for me in linguistics, this is important. This kind of was like, burp, 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 burp. And one of their main people in it who's quoted a lot is from the University of Texas. In fact, she's an anthropologist. Her name is Emily Brunson. That name is familiar to me, Emily Brunson from America, the University of Texas State U. And reading this was interesting. I suggest you read it. The Guide to COVID-19 Communication. There's actually an article in here, or a segment that says, people who are educated aren't just going to listen to a commercial or a celebrity. They're not just going to do something because the rest of the people are doing it. Someone with a higher education or a critical mind or reasonable to average reasoning skills might even question, in which case it should be met with aggressive conflict language to assure them of their safety of the hurt. What? This is really interesting. This is a guide. This is something we use in interrogations and interviewing for COVID-19. Why would you do that? That's kind of weird. And one of the things that's also interesting in watching some of the interviewing in regards to COVID-19 that's very relevant to Americans. Are you listening, America? Rand. I know a lot of people don't like him. Flashy. You definitely don't like watching the dark room, the brown seats, the empty spaces and masks going in and out of people in Congress and in these, hearings and congressional spaces and things. But Fauci right now being interviewed about gain of function, and rightfully so, because there are major conflicts of interest going on in our pharmaceutical world and realm, and just wanting to raise standards or asking questions about funding is important. Again, that skepticism of those in power. And I would encourage everyone right now, before it is censored and removed, go and watch it. It's maybe 48 hours old. Go and watch some of the gain of function interview between Fauci and Rand. And also, if you get a chance, if you're someone who just enjoys reading, you're looking for a new book pickup. I'm trying to like Anthony Bourdain's Kitchen Confidential, but I'm not. I was suggested to read The Empire of Pain. It's a suggestion on the opiate and Oxycontin struggles within America and the world. It was suggested by a veteran who I was helping out in kind of a mental space. And he said, you know what, this is, he's like, I was over there guarding poppy seeds and people were suggesting that I check things out. And he said, once I learned about the Sackler family and Purdue Pharma, I really questioned how and why and what, and just go read Empire of Pain. And I was like, oh, okay, thank you for the suggestion. And this is something that even as you begin to go down that rabbit hole in some of those spaces of, Purdue Pharma, again, not unfamiliar to me as someone who reads up on vaccinations and medications and adverse side effects to the central nervous system and vagus nerve specifically. And it's sad. It's sad working with veterans. It's sad working with people who serve and who are questioning why they're serving. As we would hope police and military and other people do. You want them to be skeptical of their purpose, but you also want them to be able to serve with passion. And when you see the elevated numbers of suicide rates in our veterans and in our teens and in our vulnerable and the people who serve, you see the corruption and the role models of Hollywood. Why did they cancel that big Next Award show? Was it because the Grammys was so bad? No, it's because everyone has an anklet. It's because everybody is dealing with don't be on TV right now. It's because there's a whole lot of things going down as far as like, well, why is there a war in Palestine and Jerusalem? There's all sorts of crazy things happening in the realm right now. And a lot of it does, unfortunately, come down to money and resources. And just being aware of where does that money go? Literally $8 or $9 billion. Where did that go? Purdue Pharma, things, questions of veterans, helping them understand that. And I can't. And I don't know how. And sometimes you have to just say that, I don't have those answers. And I wish I did understand. Sometimes not understanding it is a good space of awareness, right? If you can't empathize with it, it's a good mental check for your own space. Another thing, guys, that is an interesting watch, if you're ever interested, like myself, in interviewing and interrogations, Dr. Stanley Plotkin. It's about, if you're interested in vaccines, which the vaccine thing is in the news right now, right? Aren't we talking about these things and the health of these things and looking into these things? Vulnerable, talking about you should never be using the vulnerable, maybe rats, maybe monkeys, Ebola research, sure, but not in, measles or RA273. We shouldn't be using, orphans or the mentally ill. We shouldn't be doing that. That's like Nuremberg stuff. That's like Hitler stuff. Like, that would be horrible, right? That would be horrible. Are they doing that? Oh yeah, no, they're on trial for that, for having been done that, got off and did that on their vacation home. Still doing that. It's important to just, you don't have to take my word for it. Very. And checking in on the chat room, guys. I see you guys. Mary, Matt, thank you so much for, again, being brave, standing up, sharing your own personal spaces, being aware of, some of those tentacles, seeing a lot of mentions of climate science, justifying economic control, polluting things, taking resources in a way that is, really desalinating water for crops. Oh no. California spent billions of facilities that were supposed to solve the drought issue, instead largely went unused. And of course, we all know and have seen some of the things coming out of California. It's hard to think that billions of dollars went to anything, as so many people are just rushing out of that state because homeless people literally just littering spaces where needles don't fall. It's just, we need more of the right things, right? We need more love. He was in the Middle East back in the 80s. Yeah. Well, thank you for your service. For those of you who are talking about the people in your lives who have served and have similar stories and things like that. It's very important, right? In these times that we're checking on our veterans and our people who served, even police. Yes, it's still okay to go up to them if you see them at the gas station or something as you're in line waiting for your gas, that you say, hey, thank you for your service. And they're going to say, hey, thank you. And you go, thank you. And that's okay. And it doesn't have to be scary. You're not going to be putting your life in danger by saying, in fact, these are your neighbors and you too could be a police officer. So moving on. Guys, this is just a sidestep. I know we're getting down to the last few minutes. So things that I want to mention that aren't coincidences, right? How many coincidences make a fact? There's a lot of strange things going on in the universe, right? Not just solar flares, not just coronal mass ejections, not just edited news media, not just shootings here and there at just the right time, but also, many people making a lot of money right now is crypto and cryptocurrency, digital money, the fight, China, Russia, Jerusalem, bombs, Palestine, Israel, bombs, all this stuff kind of happening. And people, screaming out on the internet, they don't want this. They didn't call for this. It's not the people doing this. But a lot of individuals I personally know have made a lot of money, and that is what war does. So it is not a coincidence that we're seeing this happen. And it's also not a coincidence that if you are using a middle program, whether it be, Schmob and Schmud or, Hot Schmallet or whatever, that you're using these apps for crypto. I know I had shared on social media some of the ways to make it or help make it more secure. But did anybody notice, or has anyone noticed? Because, some of the peak time for trading seems to be at the witching hour. Satanists, demon, 3:00. It could be because it's the time for China and all the trading across the world. It is 24-hour trading. It's not like stocks. It's not like it ends up ding, 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 ding. It's not like the movies that everyone watches at the Wolf on Wall Street. Crypto is a little different. It's in the realm of the ether and the matrix, and the rules are almost non-existent, except for when you're looking at the patterns and going, oh, so the best time to buy and sell is at 3:00 in the morning if you're in America. Well, and then suddenly all of our apps in America that allow us to do that say, we're going to be down for routine maintenance between 2 and 4 a.m. That's inconvenient. That's weird. Talk about lazy. Talk about unemployment. Talk about weird coincidences. I'll leave you with this. Maybe not. We'll see. Laziness, unemployment. Biden standing at the podium recently announcing, and all this. Again, where are the lines? How are you going to say that someone's vaccinated or not? Are they going to ask for your HIPAA? I thought we were keeping our medical stuff private. Where are our privacy and security? Have we gotten rid of it? Did we do that old thing that they say not to do, where if you trade your privacy for security, you deny either? Did we do that already? Oh, we did that after 9/11? Okay, we did that with the Patriot Act. Okay, just checking. Biden announcing a big labor shortage, saying, you know what? People aren't working. Indeed, you pull up to the Popeye's chicken, or you pull up to McDonald's, or you pull up somewhere and you just can't get the service you used to. What has happened around here? People aren't showing up because if you do basic math, you do, average person's picking up about 30 hours a week, give or take 40, maybe, depending on where they're at and what their bills are. And you do that with the math, and then you're giving out $1,200 recovery, stimulus, whatever you want to call it, that you may or may not owe back, or it may or may not be jerked out of your taxes next year, or may or may not just be, screwing you in the long haul like a darn Requiem for a Dream movie. But then saying, and if you have been offered a reasonable job offer and don't take it, you're not going to get the unemployment anymore. You're not going to get. Also, if you show up at a protest and it's peaceful, but then it turns violent later after curfew, but someone has your picture of you there earlier, but you're on food stamps, guess what? Not anymore. You just lost all your state funding. These things are going into law now. Pay attention, people. What? Well, I got the job offer, but it didn't have health insurance, and I really need health insurance because I have diabetes. Oh, well, we're not allowed to be involved in your health. Well, but you're asking me to show my vaccination card. Well, but Tina said Tammy saw that you got a job offer and didn't take it, and so now you don't get your benefits. But like I said, it was a job offer, but it didn't have the benefits I needed, so that you didn't know the whole story. Next. What? No. Hey, wait. Next. Meanwhile, in the labor shortage, the COVID long haulers, the Wuhan discussion over here, the India strain over there, as they continue to try and boycott China and other people, and the vaccine going door to door over here and being pushed over here, and lowering the age to 12 and 15 over here, as we can't quite reach that 70% because the real numbers over here. Guess what? All the people that really needed medicine, they really needed surgeries, but couldn't get into the hospital because of all the public distancing that didn't really need to happen so much, or all of the panicking or the mishandling of it. And it's not whose fault is it? It's much as that it happened. And we have, what was it? I think the statistics were 865,000 deaths related to COVID. Well, they're not all dying of COVID. It could be heart disease and diabetes, and they just didn't get their medicine, or their EpiPen is no longer, $1,200 and they couldn't afford it. Oh, so they're actually dying of poverty. 865,000 people people, and now the people working at minimum wage, the number and disparity is at 596, and the teeter-totter. Oh, I'm pretty sure that this is like event 201. Well, this is just Margaret Sanger. This is just validation that it works. This is just eugenics. This is just the plan, man. This is just how it's supposed to be. Look at the numbers. Look at that. 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 Wait a minute. Don't look at that. Don't look at that. Don't let them look at that. Take it down. And they will. And they have, and they can, but they can't always. So you have to be quick. You have to be not so quick at the emotional, but quick at the asking why. But I don't want conflict. I don't want someone to think that I'm who cares what people think? It's more important what you think. Who cares? Don't care as much if you don't know as much to care about. Man, guys, this is when we're teaching alchemy or you're doing a math equation. It's silly. It won't work well if you get all worked up and you don't know what you're doing. So if you feel yourself getting fired up and you don't know why, calm down, take a breath, definitely before you do something stupid. Just go ask questions and don't be afraid to ask questions. If you're afraid to ask questions, then that means the people in your authority space or the people around you that you feel might have the answers aren't treating you well. If you are at all scared or unable to find the answers that you need, there is a big, big indication that something is wrong. Having worked with abused people and vulnerable people, that is like warning sign number one. If you are isolated, well, first they just isolated me from everybody. If they told you, they gave you this narrative and told you everything else is against it. If you feel unsafe asking why, guys, this is abuse conditioning, Stockholm Syndrome 101, baby. I thought enough of us were watching CSI in the 90s to know better than this. Anyway, it's 1 o'clock. So I probably have already said too much. Okay. I think that it is interesting. I think that it is important, but most important and most interesting is you to me. And of course, that you guys are showing up and continuing to share your support and continuing to give me your news articles where you are at and letting me know what you'd like to talk about, because that's what it's about. I want to have that open conversation, no man's land. I want to be able to put the guns down, put the offensive things down. It's not about hurting people. It's not about cancel culture. It's not about any of that. It's about discussion, honest, transparent discussion, integrity. Bring it with you and be excited about it. Because if we have the same goal, which is to be kind, get answers, and, have fun on this little ball in space as we spin, or under the dome, or in the firmament, or on the hollow, or whatever I don't care. I don't care. I'm not here to judge you. My goal is to hear you, and hopefully that we can go in the same direction, and that it doesn't require that we harm people along the way. I don't see how that is a problem. But right now, that is the problem. And that is the problem at hand. So if you're struggling and you share the same goals as I do, and you know someone that has similar goals to us, then tag them below, share, don't be afraid. I've got your back, stand up. It's going to be okay. It's just Wednesday. We still have solar flares happening on the 14th and 2. So do what you can to just be kind to one another and to yourself. And then you guys, I will see you tomorrow, because it's Monday through Thursday at noon Central Standard Time. So I'll see you tomorrow here on No Man's Land with me, your host, Sarah Soderlund. I'll see you then, guys.